Aye. That's all pressed. Okay. Floor is yours.
Okay, so I was invited in to talk about the budget. It was an increase this year. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the regional approach and then what REMO is and move into the budget. So we do have the regional approach. We started collectively in 2017 with all 5 municipal units. In 2005 is when Chester signed on. So really what it is it's to incorporate all of the municipalities for a shared human and equipment resource to be able to support emergencies and preparedness. There is currently 1 full-time staff member, which is myself. I report into the CAOs and then share my information and report up to the advisory committee, which is made up of the mayor's warden, deputies, and 1 elected official. So each municipal unit has up to 3 people on that committee. And the budget itself is based on uniform assessment. So within the intermunicipal services agreement that we have, it does state that the budget is passed when 51% or 2 municipal units, making up 2 municipal units has been approved. And currently we have 3 that have done that.
So you're saying it's a done deal?
It has been approved, yes.
Who's the third one? I knew MODL and Bridgewater.
MODL, then Town of Mahone Bay, and then Town of Bridgewater. Yeah. And that was shared up to the CAOs, yes. And so what I do is I present the budget to the advisory committee every year in January, and prior to advisory committee it gets shared with the CAOs and has their input as to what we think can fit in to budgets, and so we go through that process on a yearly basis. So from an emergency events perspective, it's not a first response agency. We're a secondary responder. So generally speaking, 95% of the responses are taken care of by regular police, EHS, and fire departments. There is an assistant coordinator in each of the municipal units. So we've got 5 municipal units. So there's an assistant in that. And they assist with the on-call rotation on weekends. We recognize that there's increased frequency of events as well as intensity of things, and so that's where we do a lot of pre-planning and work with municipal units to make sure that we're trained on it. We saw, just this past year, we were here in Chester twice during the floods, as well as the landslide, and we brought not just the municipal staff here, but we bring to the table the other municipal units as well to support. In 2019, when I started, they did move it from a contractor role, which is approximately 7 to 14 hours per week, into a full-time role. And at that time, it was decided, I believe, I wasn't there obviously, but from the records that I have and the input that I've got, is that they realized that there was a lot of the program that we weren't really looking at. We were really just focused on the response side, and now we're looking at the whole of emergency management program, which is mitigation, prevention, preparedness and response, recovery. So that's really what the program is. We do meet the criteria that the province provides. Within the provincial standards, under the Emergency Management Act, it clearly states that there has to be an emergency management coordinator. Not all are full-time. I think that we've got about 9 across the province that are full-time within either individual units or within REMOs, so collective organizations. The rest are potentially off the side of the desk, and that's what we would have had prior to when they had hired me on. The province is definitely pushing a whole lot more down to the municipalities, so there's a lot more that's coming up to us that we need to take care of, and so I work with the 5 municipal units to make sure that we're meeting the criteria that is provided from the province. The other thing that from a regional approach is, some of our external partners, and I'll use Red Cross as an example, they've got minimal volunteers. So in Lunenburg County, we've got 11 volunteers from a Red Cross perspective. So when we need to open a shelter and things like that, we really do need to lean into the municipal staff to be able to support that, because we just don't have the volunteers within. Not to say that they're not continually looking. If you know of anybody in the community, the more community members that we have, it does support the whole of Red Cross and then ultimately the committee. So from an advisory perspective, as I said, it's the mayors and wardens and 1 elected official. So we've got Warden Weber, Deputy Shatford, and I believe Derek is our alternate. We meet 4 to 6 times per year. I present up the emergency management plan, the after action reports, the budget, anything that has to actually do with the emergency management program. And that's very clearly stated that it has to go up to advisory from the Emergency Management Act. We did a after action report after Hurricane Dorian. There was one after the fires, although the fires didn't impact us directly. I was assisting Shelburne and Barrington with a few things, and from that the CIOs had asked if I could share some gleanings and lessons that we could that we learned from there and incorporate back into ours. And so I presented that in May, and it would have gone to advisory in July. And then the floods came in July, so we had significant response. It was the first time that we fully activated for about 15 years, and we had all of the 5 municipal partners supporting that response. And within that, we did 3 state and local emergencies with some mandatory evacuations. And then here we did a voluntary one, potentially leading into it, but we didn't need to move to that. So from those reports is really where we start to identify what the gaps are, what we need to start working on to improve the program so that we're not caught off again for the next one. During Hurricane Dorian, I was only here, I think it was 29 days prior to Hurricane Dorian's arrival, so I was quite new into the program. It was the first time, as I understand it, that advisory had ever received an after action report, and so within that there was 29 recommendations. Not every single one of them is complete to this day. In the wildfires and the flooding, specifically the flooding one, because the wildfire ones kind of were almost identical into the flooding. There's 109 recommendations that came out of it. So that's really what ultimately is what my work plan is, aside from keeping the program running, meeting out with the public and sharing that awareness. It's also getting the program prepared for future responses as well. And the reports are presented to the CIOs and AECs have input into it. I then present it up to the advisory committee, and then it's approved or denied, and in both cases it was approved. In May was when we had the wildfires, so July was our next meeting. I presented some of the projects, and advisory had asked at the next meeting to come up with some budget ideas, to give them an idea as to what it was. So at that meeting, it was then put off to say incorporate them into the budget cycle. So the recommendations that are not part of the significant projects that were listed are the things that are in the existing operating budget, and those are the ones that I work toward. In the budget, we've asked for an additional staff person to increase the capability for the actual program, work through the recommendations from the after reports, get the program continuing, and to also at that improvement level, and then also they'll assist when we're activated. So currently I'm the lead when we activate, however I can't be there all the time, so this person will be able to offset to that to be able to support the CAOs when we're in that. So I'll break down into the budget a little bit. Under the training and travel, there is professional development for 2 full-time people. We've increased the exercises and trainings. It used to be about 3 to 4 times per year, more on the 3. We've increased that monthly. That was something that was really completely identified in the after actions of both the flood and the wildfires. And we have now agreed to actually do that monthly so that we can continually train and get our core staff completely prepared and know what's going to happen in a response. Also within that, there's training and conference travel for that. There's the contingency of grants, which is at the bottom. That's made up of contingency for activations. We did not increase that. It was requested to keep it as is. Any money that is not used in an existing year's budget, we have done motions within councils that in the past we would send it back to the municipalities. However, we have agreed that it will be staying in. Last year I think it was only $4,500, so it's not a significant amount, but each time that there's anything left over, we keep that in to be able to continue for contingency. And then there's the ground search and rescue grant. I haven't received their financial statements yet, but their standard grant is $10,000, and that is to support the program and is shared amongst all 5 municipal units. Under the administration category, so that's the 2 individuals. So it's a new emergency management coordinator, myself as manager. It includes salaries, benefits, source deductions, all of the standard salary requirements. Laptops, we've got TMRs in there. The TMRs are the trunk mobile radios. So the radios that we use between responses, we can communicate with our CMP, police, ground search and rescue, etc. Laptops and Wi-Fi's for the new staff person.
Those new radios that's a provincial standard upgrade.
Yeah, I'll get to that one because this is just a TMR for that individual, but that's that's in the next slide. But yeah, we'll touch on that. And then phone charges. So we've got several phones within Remo that have the monthly charges and things. And then advertising expenses, administration costs, clerical, license fees, insurance, all of the standard things. Under the project, so this is just the projects, and again, we're focusing solely on the core budget. When I presented it, knowing full well that it was going to be an extreme shock based on the numbers that were requested earlier in the year, they were implemented back into the regular budget. So we did it as a core to keep kind of status quo to move forward. The project one is on the enhanced. So these projects on this slide are not anything to do with the enhanced. This will be what we'll be able to get through in this current budget. So it's working and continuing to upgrade the website, working with emergency partners and the public. We've agreed to do staff training, so that's approximately 300 staff. And we're giving a basic training, which is a 1-day training for all staff. What that is a synopsis of what Remo is and how we activate, the actual responses of that we've activated in the past, and then it's a partial program of the basic emergency management training and a partial of the emergency coordination center training. So the idea is to lean in towards staff so that they're more aware of what Remo is, what we do. We did see during the floods that we needed to lean into a lot more staff than we have ever had to. We've never activated to the size and the length of time that we had to, and we were experiencing staff burnout within that small group of individuals. So we're starting to roll out the Be Ready training. We're doing quite well with it, and so that's incorporated into this. There's been talk for several years that we currently still do not have a generator to make up an actual shelter location. We have generators in fire departments for comfort centers, and they could be utilized from if we're desperate to use them for a shelter. However, Red Cross really supports the regional approach because they just don't have enough volunteers, and so the idea is to have a larger facility to be able to do that. So what we're looking at is the capital side would be pushed off to next year, but the engineering and to review, to identify what buildings can be utilized, as well as get an engineering scope to identify the pre-wiring and things, so that if we can get a portable generator, it'll be wired into a variety of different across the whole county. And then what we've also identified is we need to have some more what we call to-go boxes ready for activations of all of the different positions, so that when we activate, we've just got all of them. So getting those all set up for the activations as well. And I think that's everything. Happy to entertain any questions.
So the overall budget is increased by what amount?
Going from 192 to 410, right?
Yeah, thank you.
It's double that.
Yeah, it has.
Just over.
So one thing that I didn't touch on, Alan, and I apologize, was the TMRs, and I must have said a lot of stuff. So within that, so the province has trunk mobile radio that we all utilize. The province is rolling out a new system for that. It will be, by the end of 2025 is when it's going to be completely up and running. They've started working on our CMP, police, ground search and rescues, and other departments. Municipalities are going to be slated for this year. We will get replacement for the TMRs that we received from them, and a total of what we received is 10. We currently have 17 radios, so that means that there's a gap of 7 radios that we'll have to replace. In this budget, we've only budgeted 3, so we will be reducing the amount that are shared out within the municipal units so that we have some at the coordination center to be able to give out. And then next year it would be to bring in an additional 4. And those are about $4,500 per radio. So that's the other additional cost for this.
I just have a question.
Sure.
Maybe, so do you anticipate that the budget the following year will be reduced? Because a lot of these things are capital in nature and therefore.
Yeah, some of them absolutely will. If advisory decides to go into the project side, those are the ones that are more costly, and so that would be up to advisory at that perspective at that time.
Yeah, I mean, like this year, they're looking at if we owned a portable generator and we wanted to hook it up to X number of buildings across the region.
Yeah.
These are the upgrades that would have to be made. So if we decide to go down that road, that's an additional expense.
Yeah.
There are no, there's no capital portion of this, except for the TMR radios.
Correct.
We're replacing
Yeah.
4 in this budget.
4.
There would still need to be 3 in next year's budget if we replaced all of them.
Correct.
So, but the rest of it, the generator, like the generator
That's all
engineering, that's
stuff.
engineering, that could lead to a capital project for next year. The Be Ready training would probably not have as high a cost for
Yeah,
next year.
correct. By then.
And then the
we'll
ECC
already
to go
be
boxes, we would
That would be all
portion of that out. But the majority of the cost is the full-time position, so
Yes. Yeah.
that's not likely to decrease.
In real life, it's not going to be much different.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. So, questions? That's why she's here.
I have a question.
Sure.
The process at this point. The letter says please forward the budget to your council for consideration and approval.
Yes.
But why? Because I've been told that it's already been approved.
Well, it had to be sent to every municipal unit to be approved. But the policy or the agreement that we have in place is if it's approved by 2 or more with a majority of the population,
That represent 51% of the budget. Right.
then it's approved.
That's approved.
I guess to follow on to you, Derek, if I can, without trying to sound too critical here of our own process, but if, for example, this council took issue with the budget, we really have no opportunity to react. We have 2 representatives of council that make up that management advisory committee.
Yeah.
But even though we have, every 2 weeks we ask for committee reports, we never get committee reports from Remo, do we?
Well, we don't meet every 2 weeks.
Right, but I'm saying this council asks for committee reports every 2 weeks, and this council, this is the first time this council is hearing about this budget change, even though apparently it was discussed in January.
So if I can comment on that.
We did put this on our agenda a couple weeks ago, and we weren't prepared, or I didn't feel that we could answer the questions. So that's why we prolonged it.
But yes,
I'm just going to finish. That's why we invited her in to answer the questions. We do approve it at the budget, at our budget Remo meetings, but we bring it back here, so this council approves it. If this council says no, I think we have to give a year's notice or something to get out, but we don't make the decision to stay in. That's council's decision, not our decision.
Well, from what I understand, if I'm wrong, Angela, you said it's a done deal, correct?
It has been approved by 3 municipal units, yes.
Yes. So that's
So the budget-
the disconnect for me.
The budget for this year would be deemed approved, and then the agreement gives options for the go forward from there, right? Which would require a year's notice if that's.
so I don't have the wisdom of those that are representatives, but I just want to say that I'm on Region 6, or sorry, Region 6, yes. So we have a budget every year, and you know, that budget may change by a few $1,000s one way or the other. And if it changed by $3,000, I probably wouldn't make a big deal of it. I would just make a recommendation to come back and vote in favor of doing so. But if the budget were doubling, I might, if I were on Region 6, say, hey guys, before we actually approve this going out, I'd like to discuss it with my council, especially since they're footing 30-some% of the bill. And then we'll decide if we want to recommend this to all councils. I might do that. Now, I have some questions for you.
Sure.
If I may. I understand, like, 'cause we're a big fan around here of doing jurisdictional scans, we love them. So Kings Remo, they have one FTE, is that right? Yeah, actually, it's a 4 days a week position.
Yep.
That's right.
Who's this?
Kings Remo.
Thank you.
Annapolis, one FTE.
Yeah.
Yarmouth, they have 2 part-time.
Yeah.
In Queens, they got a couple of retired guys with a phone.
Yeah.
What is it that we're doing that they're not doing?
Well, I take the direction from advisory, and I.
Well, they're
think that we
advising you to do
have-
something that the others aren't
I
doing.
think that, I'm not sure that I've ever seen a after-action report from any of those municipal units. So looking at lessons learned and how we can improve, I think that if we look at, Yarmouth is just recently gone into their second individual. Both of those individuals are relatively new. Annapolis was in the first, this is the first year that they've gone to full-time. They've recognized that there's a need to increase the programs. I think what we do is we share a whole lot of information with the public. I'm out with the public as much as possible to do trade shows, to do presentations, to prepare people. The more that we can prepare residents at the individual level, the more that we are resilient within the whole county. We also do a whole lot more training than a lot of them. Dan would probably be the outlier in that. He does a training with his unit, I believe, every quarter as a large scale, but we're doing it on a monthly basis. We're really working toward getting our Remo team prepared. Gosh, what else do I do?
Are the other ones not prepared?
Sorry?
Are the other ones not prepared?
I wouldn't say to the level that we are, no. No,
They don't care about their people?
I don't think that that's what I'm saying. I think that
They
it's
just
not.
haven't
That's not a
gone.
fair assessment. I think that the team that we have with CAOs and our AECs all recognize the need that when we're activating, we need the tools and the knowledge and the expertise to be able to support Angela and to support the community in the response. And we didn't feel prepared. So that's part of why we've increased that.
You continue. What bothers me about this is a departure from the philosophy of Remo as we signed up, in my mind.
Okay.
Because originally, in 2005, when this agreement was signed, we were all sharing a part-time FTE. And the purpose of that was basically for efficiency. We are in a fairly close geographic area, and we all have a responsibility. Us as municipal officials hold the responsibility for the health and welfare of our residents.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Not you or any staff.
Yeah.
And so it was determined at that time.
I don't believe that she was a full-time. I believe that it was only 7 to 14 hours a week. From my
You're right.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. So. Our job is to provide that emergency response.
Yeah.
And we decided that we would collectively share this resource because from an efficiency standpoint, that made sense. And the role is a role of a coordinator. But now it seems like this budget change, which is to me more than a budget change, is actually changing Remo into more of an agency model where you actually have a manager, yourself, and then staff. And it seems like it's putting more of the focus of that emergency preparedness in the hands of the agency. And we're sort of dusting our hands off and saying we've done our part. Nonetheless.
Well, I'm happy if any of Bruce is your AAC here. If he wants to come out and help with presentations, we often do things together.
You know, we've been in many regional organizations, such as the REN, for example.
Yeah.
And at some point, the budget gets big enough that it's like we beg the question, why is it that we don't have our own economic development officer? Yeah. And that's actually exactly what we do. And the money that we're putting into Remo at this point, we could easily hire a full-time person that would be dedicated to us, that would intimately know everything we have going on here. We wouldn't have it based in Bridgewater, it would be based here. Okay. You know, but that discussion, we didn't get to have that. And that actually makes me really angry as a
Okay.
councillor.
So if I can respond to that. So I share the minutes of every meeting with advisory. I apologize that it hasn't come from the advisory committee, whether it's the CAO or elected officials, into you. It is shared every single time that we have a meeting. There are minutes, they're posted on the website as well. But from a staff perspective, I feel that I'm doing my due diligence and sharing that information.
But you would agree that this represents more than just a small budget change.
I agree, it does.
This is major.
It was the direction from advisory to look into some of these.
But that direction was given, it didn't come from this council. And that's not your issue.
Correct, thank you for acknowledging that.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm just beating you up a little bit here.
Yeah,
but
that's
it's not you.
It's not personal.
That's fine, I have to represent my program, that's what I'm here to do, that's what I was asked to.
But we didn't have that discussion here.
No, but Andre, she brings us to us, these are the issues that I'm dealing with, and we tell her, go look at it and see what it means if we correct it. Yeah. And until she brings us something that says, this is what it takes to fix it, there's nothing to bring
And
back.
she's looking at it from her lens, but
Yeah.
at the kind of money we're talking about, there are other ways to deal with it. Like, for example, we could staff here. That's something we did not discuss.
You're right, we could have a staff here. When we activate, it's not Angela alone in the EMO, in the ECC. It's Angela and probably 3 or 4 of the ADCs, at least 1 or 2 of the CAOs, a couple of the deputies. There's probably 5 or 10 of us in that room. At any given time, and we do not have the staff capacity in-house to run an ECC like that for, especially if we had to do an extended duration like the wildfires. When they had the wildfires in Shelburne, they have about 20 staff members for the town. They had 9 staff members that were available for the ECC as well as running their municipal operations, because the remaining staff were either evacuated or dealing with their own properties in the midst of a fire. So they were down to 9 people to run the entire municipal operations. That's part of what we've done. So yes, it's budgeting for two staff members, but we're also getting access to the staff from 5 other municipal units at the same time, or 4 other municipal units at the same time. And there is no way we could run it on our own staff and 1 or 2 coordinators. There's just, unless it's a small scale. If it was a large scale emergency, we wouldn't be able to do it. We would be looking to our neighbors anyways.
In short, I have 2 grievances here. One, I don't understand how it is that all of those in other jurisdictions that surround us somehow do this with 1 FTE and we can't. I don't know what's not getting done if we continue on like this, except for whatever it is that there was the direction of this advisory group, which doesn't report back to this council, I guess. And 2, I don't know what options have been explored here aside from your recommendation as you were requested to do and give. So here we are, and we're being asked to approve in a budget that it's the first time us seeing it, and whether we agree to it or not, it's coming. I got a grievance with all of this. Actually, 3 grievances.
Yeah.
But that would happen no matter what. The budget was presented to us, and we brought it back and put it on the agenda as soon as we received it, that the first next meeting it was on the agenda.
Yeah.
And I could not explain the budget to you. I'm not scared to sit there and say that. You did a great job today. I couldn't have done that, the detail, I couldn't answer the questions. And that's why we put it off. You could come in and answer these questions. If I'd have put my hand up at the Remo meeting and said, no, I don't agree with it, I'd still come back here for the same thing. You guys make the decision. I don't make the decision. I felt my duty on that committee was to bring the report back what we did. Let you guys see the budget, make the decision. And that's what we're doing, exactly what we're supposed to do.
It's too late.
It's not too late. If we'd brought it back 3 weeks ago, we'd have been sitting having the same conversation. It would have been back to the other councils who would have approved it, whether we would have or not.
I would like
What
to
we
think
did today
that-
had nothing to do with the other 3 councils. They want it. If we don't want it, we have a year to get out. If we want to stay in it, we approve the budget. It's
Well, I think
pretty
that's
simple.
something we should look at then.
Well, I want to just say one thing. I watch other councils meet. It's a perverted pleasure. And I literally watched another councillor in another municipality say, when this came up, well, it's a big increase, but most of the money is being spent by Modal and Chester. So it's not a big deal to us, and all the other counselors, this is just their words, not mine. All the other counselors were in favor. That was the impetus for that. That was the last comment before they made their vote and approved it.
We all sat here and agreed to the process of how we pay, what the formula was. This council agreed to that. Of the formula of who pays what.
Which is very
Is
similar
what
to the way we pay
is
for
what
it.
we agreed to. And that's the process we brought back here, what we agreed to.
Yeah, I agree with that. However, I guess we're shocked because the budget's doubled.
I was
And,
shocked.
you know, that's the thing.
I was shocked, I'm not scared to say, when I saw the budget, I was totally shocked.
Normally when I'm on a big committee, and they're like, well, we want to present this budget, I might say, hey guys, hang on a second here, this is a big change, why don't we go back and consult with our councils first before we push this forward? Oftentimes our partners will react favorably to that. You can do that. You don't have to continue on and then be in this situation where we have no choice but to either, nuke Remo as it exists, or, there could have been an opportunity for a discussion.
We only received the budget a couple of weeks ago. That's the first we saw it. The CAOs and stuff may have seen it prior to, but we didn't.
We can put the minutes of the advisory committee on the agendas, but Floyd is right that the agreement is in place for how the process works, and so there is an option to give the year's notice and take that year. You can take that year and look at the agreement if you would like, but the agreement is a long-standing agreement.
Well, so was Ren.
Yeah. Tina?
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And actually, Della, that's where I was going to go in terms of another, type analogy, if you will, the rent. And thank you, Andre, for bringing that up. So, like everybody, I think seeing it on the agenda a few weeks ago, it was a surprise. It was a shock, I guess, not a surprise, a shock. I agree with Sharon. We agreed to that formula. Absolutely, 100%. I remember that discussion, or read about it or something. I don't know if I was here, but agree with that. But maybe the time is here, and we've grown as a municipal unit to look at the example, and can't just replicate it. The REN is an idea in terms of service within our own municipality. I guess maybe this is what's forcing that or encouraging that in my mind to look at that, and I think that's where I'm going. To speak on a positive note, I certainly appreciate the offer and the willingness and the absolute evidence of jumping in when it comes to any community wanting to reach out and have you there, because I know that you've done that. I know that you've worked closely with I say our, because it's a Lunenburg County Senior Safety Partnership, the staff there. And the good word is back through those channels in terms of getting to the core of preparedness. And I don't think we can take away from that value at all. So I appreciate all that you do with that. And again, if it's the advisory committee or the municipal units or who's driving this, I'm not quite sure on that. But thank you for being here. And I think that for me, it's forcing some hard decisions maybe in my own mind in terms of where we're going to go. Because that might be not a happy day. I don't know, but I guess I'm there now because of this. That's all. Thanks.
Jared?
If I'm looking at the numbers correctly, and I want to be sure, we're paying now 123, and that's going to 243? No, so what's the,
We're paying
am I looking at the
51.
green or the blue? Which are the ones?
We're paying 51,676, and we will be paying 123,595.
Yeah. So go to the left-hand side.
For the core budget, not the enhanced budget.
Sorry,
Okay.
What's approved was
On the
the
top
core
right.
budget.
Not the enhanced.
Go down a
So
little
the
bit.
enhanced budget.
Yeah.
The core just gives us what we're getting now.
So there's a second column to your left.
Well, with additional
Right.
staff,
Yeah,
additional
the
training, and
123.
additional radios. And and engineering on where and when, how we can put in generators.
Just out of curiosity, when we have an emergency whereby it's severe enough that the evacuees can't be put on a bus and brought to some other location, and there presumably would be in that kind of scenario widespread power outages, how would one decide where you're going to take a solitary generator? How would you make a policy around that?
We would make the decision based upon what the emergency is, and the discussion that we've had is if we had a variety of different facilities that had hookups, we would try to keep the residents wherever possible in the closest community. So we wanted to, as Alan suggested, have something in Chester, have something in Bridgewater. If it's an area that's being evacuated from here, we want to keep people as close as possible to their homes. Wherever possible, that is the standard that we do. Not to say that we have to relocate them into other locations if we need to. Currently, there is not a facility in all of Lunenburg County that has a generator that is a big enough facility for a shelter that meets the Health Canada and Red Cross requirements for a shelter, which includes gymnasium, smaller rooms for breakouts and families and things like that, a kitchen, bathrooms, and showers.
We've been talking about the lack of that type of facility for years now.
I've been here for
and we're
4.5
just trying
years
to
since
move
then.
forward so that we can
But
finally resolve that.
in terms of a generator, no decision has been made on whether that would be what the generator is or what that program is. Is it one mobile generator? Is it multiple mobile generators? No decision has been made. It's an investigation of what is
Well, I
needed.
just can imagine
What
a whole
facilities
lot of
and what
policy
they need.
issues around that when you have 5 owners of one asset. Presumably in a situation where there would be emergencies all over the place, and how you would make the decision.
Well, I think that we experienced that actually in Hurricane Dorian, where we had to allocate resources, and that's actually one of the things that I'm trained in, is to look at the assessment and to understand, to evaluate where the emergency is, what we're trying to do. So in Hurricane Dorian, it wasn't with regard to people. However, we had multiple different municipal units that had power outages at all of the critical infrastructure sites. I have all of the units share with me in their priority, and then I look at all of them and I work with the CAOs, and then we then also higher prioritize within that. And I will be very honest, it was the most seamless approach that I've ever experienced. I was fully expecting, and granted I was only here for less than a month, I was fully expecting every municipal unit at that time that was impacted to say that theirs was the priority. That was not the case. One individual had said, I believe this municipal unit is actually the most important, and everybody agreed, and it was a very seamless approach. And I think that's the purpose of having people trained to have the emergency coordination center. We look at it from a holistic approach and not just an individual unit. I have to look at things from a whole county, not just an individual unit. And that's where I would advise my CAOs and advisory, if I need to get to that point, to say, this is my recommendation. And it's not just mine, we collectively talk through the decisions. So I actually don't think that that would be a stepping stone.
From our perspective, we might, if we were alone, we might purchase infrastructure or assets like a generator, for example, like a portable generator to back up sewage lift stations and things like that.
Yeah, some of the
That
other
could
units have
also,
that as well.
that also could be used for emergency purposes.
Yes, and
Of
if we
course.
knew what the requirements were, we would use those specs for some of the wiring in through this project, so 100%. And one of the other towns has also offered a similar perspective, but it's generally used for their water and wastewater treatment plants. But not to say that if theirs isn't down, we would be able to utilize something like that.
And generally, if the power is down and we need it for the wastewater treatment plant.
Our critical infrastructure
we need
is
it for the
always
wastewater
the
treatment
biggest
plant. It's not available
responsibility.
for a shelter, so.
Yeah, critical,
Again, I just want to thank you for coming in,
Yeah, thanks.
answering questions, because I knew there'd be a lot of tough ones.
Yeah.
I just know that in the past year, we've seen some of the changes in our weather patterns. We've seen floods, fires, you name it. We've seen it. We've seen the snow keep written this year. I was not entirely in favor of this when this all started, and I thought a lot about this, and I talked with Councillor Vino a bit about it. What I see here, and from what I'm understanding from staff, and I may be wrong, is they don't feel that even with a staff person that we could be, I guess, at the level of expertise that we would be staying with Remo. That's what I think I'm hearing. And I think things are only gonna get worse with weather, and I'm prepared to stay with remote. That's my personal feeling on it, but I just want to say to the other councils, we have to look at what's happening in this world today, where we're at, and I think before we make a decision, we should definitely hear back something from staff. And if it's gonna take one person, it's gonna cost us more, and if it's gonna cost us, let's say, I don't know, the budget's 120 feet, it's gonna cost us 90,000, and we're gonna have half the coverage or service or whatever you wanna call it that we're gonna have now. I think we gotta take a very strong look at it and make a very, I guess, informed decision before we make a jump.
Andre?
I'd like to move that we reject this budget, and then we ask for a staff report on what a full-time emergency service coordinator would look like in our municipality.
I'll second that motion.
No, I won't support it.
I want to, before you vote on the motion, I have another question.
Well, it's gotta be on the motion.
It's on the motion, it goes to the motion. Because we're talking about the budget, and I'm just trying to understand what we're rejecting. Can you explain to me what the two in blue, 2024, 2025 proposed budget represents under enhanced budget?
Yeah, the enhanced budget included a variety of additional projects like the vulnerable for service project, volunteer roster, the capital budget for a generator, and a project of evacuation routes. In addition to that, in order to do some of those projects, it was to request a third individual as well.
So the enhanced budget
But
is
that's not what we're looking at in this.
That's not-
We're only looking at the core budget.
the enhanced budget was proposed as a way to move up and speed up getting some of those bigger projects done, like a volunteer roster. So that's a vulnerable person's roster that you've heard them talk about in the news, especially with the wildfires and the flooding, and now with the storm. So that was a vulnerable persons registry. A volunteer roster would be to help staff up our comfort stations. The generator purchase and the evacuations routes, so looking at mapping and ways to do evacuations when we need to do evacuations. So it was looking at those projects that have been identified as priorities from the after actions reports of several of the incidences we've had. So they're on the to-do list, and it was the enhanced budget would have taken those and given us the resources to do those in 1 year. What the committee discussed, what the advisory committee discussed was not having an appetite for that right now, to rather take those projects and increase the timelines and so use the core budget with an additional staff person to do those projects over a longer term period instead of trying to push them all into 1 year. So that's what the enhanced budget represented.
Any further questions, Derek?
So what we're voting on is the 2024, 2025 proposed budget under core budget.
That's correct.
Correct.
So will we expect to see the blue enhanced budget next year?
No. No, what we chose to do was to take more time to accomplish all those things.
So we'll get to that number eventually. So we'll get to the $250,000 in a couple of years then.
No, that's not the intent.
No. So that the enhanced budget included hiring a third staff person. So what the committee said was there was no appetite to do that, to stick with the 2 staff people and have
Just
those
take
staff
longer
people
to
take
get
longer
everything
to do the items instead. So you won't see the entirety. Now you might see some of the projects appear later. So as we wrap up the Be Ready training, that funding will come out, that item will come out of the core budget, and then we'll put the next project in there as we go forward.
So just to be, sorry.
Wait a second, Tina was next.
Thank you. So it's tricky now.
Yeah,
So it's
that's-
kind of, because there was a motion, but, so it's,
Speaking to the motion, that's fine.
yeah, okay. So could Councillor Vino remind me again, the reference to King's Remo, the budget there, just so I'm just trying to compare projects and what they're doing.
I can only
Again,
go by FTE, and I can't speak to what projects,
okay.
and I don't know if any of us can, we don't have no clue what exactly our projects are unless we go and consult the website, because we don't get reports. But But I would say that it would appear that those are in our jurisdiction around us have one FTE to do this job, and that our advisory committee has asked for things that must exceed what the others are doing, I presume, and that it takes another person to do it.
I know, and I know it's on the motion, but
Yeah,
again, but again, I,
stretched on.
again, and I only know a little, but geographically located where I am, and I've said this to you before, Angela, I'm very keen and paying attention to and linked into the King's remodel. And I know the projects. No, I probably don't even know all the projects, but the Vulnerable Registry, they do that very well, very well. And when I think of all of our communities and the volunteer registry of volunteer persons or whatever it's called, that's key, and they're doing that. Because I think of Aspetuggin and New Ross and Martins River, yeah, so that's still to the motion because I'm still in my head thinking about the budget and what's being proposed and what we're getting for the budget. Thank you.
Another question on the motion, please. What the consequences, even if we vote to reject it, nothing's going to change because it's already passed based on the agreement, correct?
That's correct.
That's what I'm thinking.
So is there anything in the agreement that we trigger by voting against it?
We would have to then determine whether we're given notice to get out.
But it's not triggered by this motion.
That's what Sam and I were just discussing, so I think we need clarity on what the motion is
It's not
because.
automatically triggered, but that would be the logical next step.
Yeah.
In my motion, I specifically asked for a report. I think at the end of that report, we could make a decision.
Yeah, so it's not triggering,
It's not triggering a removal, no.
no. So the-
That's later on, we would have to determine whether we're gonna do that or not.
So the only vehicle we have to sort of express our discontent with this process is to support that motion.
Basically.
Yeah,
Well, the motion is largely symbolic.
yeah.
Because it doesn't have the effect of approving the.
No, we're still gonna pay it this year one way or the other.
Yeah,
So it indicates a displeasure.
yeah, that's not just for clarity. I think we need to know what the consequences of voting.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
Good, healthy discussion, Mr. Ward.
Yes, it was.
My answer would be, I got two, three trees, one.
Okay, 8.1, I remove.
You don't want to move people out of the
Okay, 9.1.
All, it's just stuff out. I think we did know 8.1 was removed.
8.1 is gone.
No,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
we're not doing it.
Yours is still on. 8.1 was removed, which is.
Understood, the person who's presenting it, just stepped out.
oh, on the 9.1.
Yes.
Okay, 10.1, correspondence Tam Lunenburg regarding system analysis agreement.
So this is just a notice from the town of Lunenburg. We had a shared IT services contract agreement with them. So we were providing 40% support to them 2 days a week. So they have given notice that they would no longer intend to use that service and they're withdrawing from the agreement. However, the agreement actually expired January 6th. So in effect, they gave notice the day before the agreement, and the way the agreement was worded that if we don't give notice, it doesn't if they give notice or they don't ask us to return, that it would no longer continue. So
We're
in
just done.
effect, we're just done with the agreement, is what it is, yeah. So we're just giving you a heads up that's what's happened, is that agreement is no longer in effect.
Can I ask a question? Now that we're no longer supporting Lunenburg, are our staff complement added? Like, are we overstaffed?
In talking to our IT staff, no. We have lots of work that can be done with a full-time position. So it's 2 days a week, and so it'll have a small budget impact this year where we were intending that they would support some of that. But the staff feel that there's lots of stuff still to do for that position.
Okay, we're on to 9.1. We're back on that.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As you've seen in the package there, we've asked council to give direction to proceed with processing development agreement application and hold a public information meeting. So we received a development agreement application from Bear Lake Wind Farm Limited on behalf of the landowner Atlantic Star Forestry Limited. So the proposal is for one turbine for a larger wind project. Has a height of 206.5 meters and generating capacity of 5.9 megawatts. So this type of development is considered a high capacity electrical generating facility in the land use bylaw. And that requires a development agreement process. So they're proposing 15 turbines for the whole project, and there's one that's municipality. So it's
Save you some effort in reading this. I mean, I think that our job is only to refer this on.
Yeah.
I think we'd be happy to do that. I'll make that motion to refer it on just to save you some agony of going through this.
Second.
Yeah.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion carried. I'll just make reference to it, even though it's after the fact. I mean, of course we're going to do it because it's allowed in our municipality. We have the setback requirements. We already have all, but it's very controversial in
Can be.
West Hands.
It's really cool that we're getting one, because we tax based on installed capacity, which is nice.
Yeah.
And there's a big one.
Yeah.
5 points of the
But up in West Hands in certain areas, it's much closer to homes than South Canoe is.
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Well, we'll find out during the public consultation process, if anybody's upset.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
thanks.
Okay, service agreement for maintenance insurance. 10 point.
10.2?
Yeah.
Some of us are going before the public hearing process, including the news.
Damon, is Fred coming in for this one?
I'll go with the crowd.
I don't know.
This is an insurance question.
Yeah. Well, I can't answer that. I don't know. The work staff, somebody tell me what it works.
10 million seems enough to me, but I'll hear it in the report.
We'll wait for.
Okay, we're gonna move to 10.3 and it's a thank you letter.
Thank you.
So we got it.
It was very nice.
You're welcome.
2.3, was that the 4-H?
Yep, very
So,
nice.
yeah, so that was pretty exciting. I think we were one of very few that did that. I reached out to Aaron to mention something just after that. I think Niagara Falls and Parliament, of course, in Ottawa, maybe in Halifax, but certainly in the province. So 4-H is pretty big here, really.
We're looking from the side.
Yes.
Okay, back on to 10.2.
I'd like to acknowledge that, thank you. I think that would be a nice gesture.
Yeah.
To get something from the municipality.
Yeah, and we appreciate it. Okay, we'll draft the letter.
I think so.
Yeah.
These people like that.
We should put this right in our municipal insight.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well done, it's all handmade and everything.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, we can do that too, yeah. Okay, maintenance insurance. I think that's where we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Fred is 10 million enough?
Yeah. That's up to our broker, who's the same for them, right? They're saying it should be 15 and they're asking for 10. And it's really a council decision. I don't know.
So if it works, there's no problem.
What could happen that would be more than 10 million?
I'm not
Seems like a
sure.
lot.
Yeah, the insurance people set these values, I'm not, you know. You think,
So we can approve their request and it's not a problem?
Not a problem to me. Gotta be done.
Somebody want to move
that's
it?
great. It depends if they have like multiple charges against them for some reason, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried.
Mr. President, before Village too.
Well, really.
Yeah.
11.1, Community Development Recreation Development Agreement for West Commons Road. Oh, yes. Andre's declared a conflict. Is there anybody else who has conflict?
I'd like to not participate at this stage, or I have to get some advice on it. I'm not sure. I may be.
Well, you either have to, you're either, yeah.
You're probably better off to go there.
Yeah, if there's any gray area.
Just,
Yeah.
that's right, if there's any gray area, I would step away. Yes.
Yeah, you can't sort of have to.
No,
No,
either in or out.
I don't think I am, but anyway. Just for clarity.
Yeah. Okay,
You want me to
Councillor Wells is also declared a conflict.
potentially?
Well, I can't judge that.
Right, so-
Last word.
Yeah, good morning. Similar to the request that Paul just presented, this is just a request for direction to proceed with an application that we've received for a development agreement. Just a brief overview of the specifics. So this is on Chester Commons Road, and the proposal is for 4 buildings, each containing 6 dwelling units, so a total of 24 units. Currently, the site is 5 properties, but the intent is to consolidate those all into one, so it will all sit on one lot, and that 12 or more units in the mixed-use zone is what triggers our development agreement requirement. So we've received the application package, the application fees. There's a project summary which was attached here, and quote some of the housing needs assessment pieces as this being a piece of the sort of needed type of housing, and I think generally staff would agree with that. The design, which will all be forthcoming as we move forward with the process, is I think an appropriate style, but also intended to result in rentals that are not at the top end of market. So that's the kind of thing we've been talking about, a lot of attainable housing and market rental housing, and that definitely appears to be what this is focused on. So essentially what we're looking for here is direction to proceed. We'll prepare a staff report, draft development agreement, hold the public information meeting, and bring it to PAC before returning back to council.
Somebody prepared to move that?
I will, I just have one question. Was this something that you were aware of a while back, or did it just sort of come together?
No, this one came in fairly recently, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so this is great, and hopefully.
I'll move it.
Seconder?
I'll second it.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried.
I'd like to locate, do you have a better location?
Oh.
I know you said Commons Road, but
Yeah,
I'm familiar.
I think it's on the map.
and actually you're right, I didn't actually include a location.
I don't think you included
map here.
Just send us a map.
Yeah, sure, I can circulate that when I get back to my desk. It's kind of at the corner of Chester Commons Road where it comes down and then turns across and intersects with Maple.
Oh, okay, 'cause it
Yeah.
doesn't border on the number 3 at all.
No, it doesn't. Currently I should have mentioned that as well, I guess. Currently the properties are owned by Lobster Point Holdings. So there's a significant amount of property that's under that same ownership. So this is 5 of those parcels, sort of on the westward side, and we have authorization from the.
So would it be as far as Terry Brown, the garage there? Is it
No, not that far. Yeah, and I'll send a quick little map
Okay,
when
great.
I get back to my desk. Pardon me?
Near the trail?
It is, yeah, it's about 150 meters from the trail. I was looking at that the other day in terms of
Geez, that's a
connections,
nice
so,
development,
yeah.
Wonderful.
The location is good. I would consider it to be walkable into the village
Nice.
from where it is, yeah. So,
Like to see it.
Okay, 11.2, home in the heart of Blue Ross, community meeting flyer, and this is for information.
So you can tell them to come in, maybe.
Yeah.
It's 10:30, we're right on schedule. There's no other new business.
Yeah. No, let's take a 5-minute, okay.
The heart of New York.
So, a motion to adjourn?
So moved, second.